Hi, this video is about setbacks and finding solutions, which is another interesting facet of having a growth mindset, because the way that you view setbacks when they occur, and when you're learning something new, setbacks are inevitably going to happen, but it's the way that you deal with those setbacks that's important. So if you were in a fixed mindset, you would want to give up because that setback is something that's going to stop you, rather than thinking about how you could move forward. So rather than it being something that stops you, it's something that you have to think around. So it's a small problem along the way, rather than something that's going to stop you outright from trying to achieve what you're setting out to achieve. So setbacks and being able to find solutions comes from challenging yourself, which is obviously another part, a strong part of the growth mindset, is that you like challenges. You see them as something that's going to help you to move forward and make progress. They don't frighten you. It's not something you avoid. Whereas in a fixed mindset, you probably would avoid taking on a challenge because it might reveal your inadequacies, or how you perceive your inadequacies might be seen. So if you made a mistake on something, or if you failed, or something went wrong, or there was a setback, or you seem to be putting in a lot of effort, those things are things that are going to make you appear not naturally clever, and that's what you're trying to avoid. Anyway, so setbacks are something that come from challenging yourself. So if you are challenging yourself, you probably are going to have a setback at some point. So it's about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, because obviously that's what challenge is. And if you're going to push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're going to expect to encounter some struggle, or at least you should do. And you're going to probably have to think outside the box a bit, be a bit creative, and you're going to have to think a bit about how you're going to get yourself out of your problem or your setback that you've got to solve. So it largely connects, I think, in terms of what we're talking about at the moment, particularly with COVID-19, and this would be the same probably in a lot of situations, but not necessarily quite as much as it is now. But in solving a problem, it's quite connected to teamwork and collaboration, which will be another video that I talk about. And there is a lot of collaboration that's been happening at the moment during COVID-19, to help get us through this. So for example, I know my sister-in-law, for example, is a GP, and I know that a lot of what they've been doing in GP surgeries is because of the social distancing measures that are in place. They cannot obviously see patients on a one-to-one basis as normal, and therefore a lot of the consultations that are happening are over the phone. Those that are, obviously doable over the phone. PPE shortages, which I've talked about in a previous video. There are people that don't normally make PPE equipment, but they've realised that they've got the resources. So for example, 3D printing is making a lot of production of some of the equipment that is required for PPE more possible. If people have got that kind of equipment, then they are seeing the opportunities to get involved with supporting that. I saw an article or a report on the news the other day about a company who was saying that they had the ability to help produce some of the testing equipment that Matt Hancock has said, we so desperately need to be thinking about. But they said that it was going to cost them £30,000 a day to be running these tests. Now, they said they were perfectly happy to kind of put themselves forward for helping to produce this equipment, or this testing equipment, but that they would need financial help from the banks, and that was proving to be a bit difficult. And they were saying that basically banks needed to be a little bit more relaxed at the moment, because these things are so important, and if anyone that can help can, and they need some support in providing that solution, then that's what the bank should be thinking about. And he said it wasn't about making a profit, because at the end of the day they probably wouldn't make any profit. They'd probably more likely make a loss from doing it. But it was about seeing the bigger picture and seeing the national need at the moment. So that kind of links onto the idea about the financial support that the government have had to put in place. There are a lot of businesses who are really, really in a difficult place at the moment, and I completely appreciate that. The financial setbacks as a country, the economic implications and setbacks that we are going to encounter, not just for the next few months, but probably for quite a long time to come, are going to be immense, and we're going to have that resiliency to see how we can work our way through those setbacks, and that's going to need strength. We've got to have the resolve to get ourselves back on our feet, and work together on that. In terms of other things where there have been setbacks, there's been, because of social distancing, there's been a huge amount of setbacks. We are social animals, and there's been a lot of ways around not being able to be with each other that people have kind of got in place. One of the big areas that I was going to talk about was the nation's health, because there are a lot of people that have been talking about how concerned they are about the nation's health. And even one of the measures that the government have put in place about one of the reasons we are allowed to leave our dwellings at the moment is in order to get one piece of exercise a day. So they see the importance of that, because we are going to be suffering health-wise in a lot of ways, like our mental health, for example, when we come out of this, that actually the healthcare service was on its knees anyway to do with our health, and so that message just to not stop looking at our health is definitely forefront of their messages at the moment. I couldn't do this without talking about Joe Wicks, because obviously he's been the nation's PE teacher. So I intermittently have done a bit of Joe Wicks, and been getting my little 3-year-old kind of joining in where possible. She's been particularly enjoying when he's been dressed up. I think we watched the one of him as a frog, and we've watched the one of him as Spider-Man. So that was all quite fun. I couldn't do this without mentioning my own brother-in-law, who's a physiotherapist. He works for SR Physio. He's been producing some things online, and he's also an active member of something called Able to Be, which is an organisation that supports disabled people in terms of keeping fit. And I know that they have been doing some online videos as well to get those people up and functioning and doing their thing. I also myself partake in Jazzercise normally, which is an exercise class, and we have quite a substantial community in Jazzercise. And my particular teacher has been absolutely amazing in trying to find ways of bringing us together to keep that community exercising. And initially she started off trying to doing some PT, some personal training sessions to try and keep us going, because they had an issue with music licensing. But behind the scenes, they have been working with, I don't know, the authorities on these things about how they could stream some live Facebook sessions. And there are some provisos with it, but they've managed to kind of get the music licensing issue out of the way, and it's been agreed that we can do those sessions, but they're just taken offline as soon as it's happened, so they're happening live. So that's been amazing. She's worked really hard to get us all online and keep us going, keep us motivated, keep our mental health going, because our physical health is a massive part of our mental health. So that's been fantastic. And I actually, in some ways, feel that while I've seen people going back and forth from classes, I do feel that there's been a strength of community when you see all the other people that are kind of logging in, because on Zoom you can, which she's done her personal training sessions on, you can see the people that are taking part. And so in a funny kind of way, it has strengthened things a little bit. But obviously it's not the same as being in the same room as each other, but hopefully that will come soon enough. So what I found really quite strange was I was putting this together and had mentioned all of that, and then when she launched the fact that we were going to be able to do live sessions of Jazzercise, she put on her post, comebacks are stronger than setbacks, and it was just as I was putting this together. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, yeah, you have to have the setback in order to have the comeback. So if you want things to get stronger, you have to have that comeback moment, and you can't have that unless you have a setback. So I think there's a definite positive way of looking at things there. Okay, so building communities we've done, and I was thinking about building communities. That also made me think about the war effort, and actually I said to my husband, this is the closest thing that our generation will probably ever experience, having not been through the war. And he said, it's nothing like a war. I thought, yeah, it's not anything like a war. And particularly what's happening at the moment, we are able to connect with each other through online mechanisms, which they just didn't have at that time. So we're really lucky where we've actually seen social media and online communication as a useful tool, but also with a bit of a negative connotation to it. I think at the moment we are really seeing the possibilities that it has for us and helping us to keep that connection, because like I say, we are social animals. That's what drives us. So we do need that. Okay, setbacks, more setbacks. I've seen a pub in Baldock, I saw in the news, that had converted itself from being a pub, because obviously people can't go in there and share drinks like they normally would do, but converting themselves into a local store, which was particularly useful for NHS staff, because once they'd come off their shift they could go to this small store, which was easier than going to a supermarket. I've seen a 100-year-old man who had turned 100, and rather than lose that amazing celebration that could have happened, his neighbours, I saw a video footage of his neighbours all stood at different points in his street around where his window was, but obviously keeping their distance from each other, just doing a round of applause, and he sat at his window, which was just gorgeous, and saw this appreciation. And perhaps they wouldn't have done that, his neighbours, if that event hadn't occurred. I don't know. So I thought that was nice. I think there are small setbacks too within our own families, or our own households, that we have to contend with and think through. So for myself, in my family, I had decided that now was the perfect time to potty train my little girl, because she is 3 and we have kind of broached on it before, but she didn't seem particularly interested. And I thought, now is the moment that we are locked in, essentially, and if we can't do this now, when is it going to get done? And I've been quite trepidatious about, you know, doing this journey with her, particularly if I didn't feel she was ready to do it and didn't want to. But we have been successful, I think. There has been a couple of moments where she was saying to me in the morning, having thought we'd taken 2 steps forward with it, she would then say to me in the morning, no, I don't want a nappy, I don't want to wear it. And we had a bit of a to-do trying to get her to agree to wear the nappies. But, you know, having taken a step back, and that was a setback, we have coaxed her forward, and, you know, we kept trying, kept persevering with it. And I think, fingers crossed, things might be okay. So I'm quite pleased about that. And another issue that's happened with her is that when it's just the 2 of us together, we've been trying to play some games that she's got, and we couldn't play those games because we didn't have enough people to play with. So we improvised and got creative, and our solution to that setback was that she got her toys, and sat each of them, we were playing Lotto, and they each had their own board, and we just took their turns for them, which we was quite happy with. So that was good, and that showed that that skill of turn taking, and she was quite entertained. I have another friend who's told me that with her mum and her sister, I think, they had an online game of Yahtzee going on. So they all had their own dice in their different houses and played a game of Yahtzee, which apparently was hilarious. I've also seen Cards of Humanity, who, I don't know if you've heard of that game, but they've produced that game online. They've got a printable set of cards that's a family version. But I was also thinking that you could play that game using text messaging if you had like a WhatsApp group, because there's somebody who has to take everybody's answers and read the cards, to read their answers. And I was thinking that could be done like through virtual means as well. So I haven't tried it yet, but it's something I'm thinking of. And we've also had to adjust my little girl's, or adjust our timings for the day, because she's decided, and this is not the best time to have decided this, but she's decided to drop her naps. So there is no kind of let up at the beginning of the afternoon when she usually used to take her nap. So as a result of that, she has started conking out at about 4 o'clock. So we have adjusted our daily routine so that we get her to that 4 o'clock time, and then start cooking dinner. I know it sounds exceedingly early, but cooking dinner and getting that out the way, and having a bath and doing like bedtime story routine to get her into bed a bit earlier than normal, which gives us a bit of a longer evening to kind of get anything done that we need to, or have a bit of a relax. So that's a setback that we'd had, but we've learned to kind of work our way around that and finding a solution for that. So generally working from home has been setbacks with that one, and I think my husband being online, he has he does these like phone calls around the world with different people in their homes at the moment, because they're all in their homes. So I think there's that appreciation for the fact that you might have somebody bursting in at a particular moment, which I'm sure many of you out there will have experienced. So we have to just see the funny side in that. But there might be ways of finding ways around that, and you've probably found some of those yourself. One of the things that, or one of the problems that I don't see a solution to as much, and I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but it just hasn't really happened around my area, but I think other areas it may well have happened. Garden centres have got a huge amount of stock, and this being a prime season for getting out in the garden, getting gardening, and we've now got the time to do this because our gardens are a massive part of what's getting us out of the house and keeping us sane, especially while we're having some nice weather. But there's not the provision of going to the garden centre to get the things that you require. So I feel like there has been a bit of a wasted opportunity. Like I say, probably more around maybe these parts than other parts, because some places may have found a solution to this. But I think it largely might be a problem with having vans available to deliver. But I kind of feel like there's a delivery service there waiting to be, utilised. There are people there that would buy plants and things for their garden, and then could order things online and pay for them, so that it helps the the garden centres get rid of their stock as well, because they'll lose a lot of money out of this, and it's a shame because some beautiful plants out there. So I think, to sum up, that this pandemic has highlighted the fact that as a human species, we're very good at creating problems, but we're also very good at solving problems. And I think the earlier that we can get children on that road to seeing and really being explicit with them, oh my goodness, this is a problem, this is a setback, but what can we do to solve this? They actually can be as good as us at solving these problems. So I think it's a really good thing that they're actually having to see us as a nation, as adults, as teachers, as whoever, struggling through this. But it's also really important that they see our ways of coping and finding those solutions. So I just hope, fingers crossed, that this kind of national mood, global mood at the moment to finding these creative ways out of these setbacks and finding solutions is going to continue to such a level as it is at the moment.